Sistership, we got this on a brothership united. Sistership, we got this on a brothership united. I need a place where I can talk about some other shit. Get juice for some other man. I'm looking for a brothership. Okay. I need a place where I can talk about some other shit. Get juice for some other man. I'm looking for a brothership. It's substance. Bro, you know we on a mission, let's roll. Yeah. Hop up on a sistership show, teach us everything you know. Come on, so we help each other grow. That's how our communities blow. What's up? You got a sec? I need to build for a minute. What's up? Matter of fact, you can chill for a minute. Okay. I need a platform where we can talk about some other shit. Get jewels for some other men. I'm looking for a brothership. Get it right, this real life. We kind of struggling. Airtight on this shot, no more dysfunction. And we reeling in the sunken, and we bringing in our brother in the battles that you face and be a cannon with our confidence. No disrespect to my sisters at all, but it's the barbershop talk. Talk the kid out of the bar, talk ways, and just a little hustle to get paid, and just a little game to get laid, and the importance of my credit, stock, and hip hop education. Now I'm better. Listen, I need a place where I can talk about some other shit, choose for some other men. I'm looking for a brothership. Hey, let's go. Hey, it's rich. We on a brothership. Come with us, we on a brothership. We on a brothership. Roll with us, we on a brothership. Sistership, we got this on a brothership united. 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 I need a place where I can talk about some other shit. Get jewels for some other men. I'm looking for a brothership. I need a place where I can talk about some other shit. Get jewels for some other men. I'm looking for a brothership.
All right, that was the extended mix version of our intro song, people. I am your host, one of your hosts, Darren DJ Jersey Johnson, and once again, I have the privilege of having two recurring guests and the partner of the Gynesis Radio show on with us this afternoon. Bruce Berry, our esteemed colleague and co-host, is on, and I'll just go around the room and introduce everyone again. Terry Polite Pickering, who's a general partner and owner of the Gynesis Network, is on live with us. Glad you're here, my brother.
Glad to be here.
My blood brother, Arthur Rookie Johnson from Brooks Castle. We've enjoyed his company and input, and this is, I think, the trifecta show with him. Hey, Brooks.
Thanks for bringing me back.
And last but certainly not least, because I used to always have him on the front end, is my friend, fellow FAMU, Florida A&M alumni, as Terry is as well, by the way.
Absolutely.
That.
I'm a rattler.
Dr. Vincent Rice. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you. Nice to be here with you guys.
All right. So, you know what? Let's just jump right in because, you know, for the crowd's purposes, the audience's sake, we actually had another issue. We were going to talk about relationships because that was, I'll say, a co-subject that we were going to leverage with the sistership. But we felt that we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the elephant in the room. So, true to the title of the show, Examining Gun Culture in America, I think that we need to, as the brother, have a conversation about it because there's a lot going on in America right now with this gun control. And there's so many ways to start it off. I think the best way to get it started off is to just go around the room and just, I don't want to be too pervasive and ask about whether or not you own a gun. But I guess the best next way to approach this is that, do you believe in gun ownership and do you believe in gun control? So Terry, I'll start with you and we'll go around the horn.
Well, I can say this. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in gun ownership. I have a problem with the Mumford Act, you know, and that's, you know, because of the way they utilize the Mumford Act. That's my only issue with gun control, because the Mumford Act was designed to disarm people that look like us.
And I think expand on that, because I know what the Mumford Act is, and I think, if memory serves me correct, and you keep me honest, that was something that was implemented in the state of California by then Ronald Reagan to basically disenfranchise gun ownership for Black Panthers at that particular point in time. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and that Mumford Act is a nationwide law. That's why they begin to give any and every non-Caucasian a felony for anything that they did, and they would threaten you with a bunch of jail time, and then they would come back and say, well, you won't go to jail, cop out to this right here, you won't go to jail, we won't put you on probation, you're just going to have it on your record. And a lot of people that look like us fell for the okie doke, and they accepted that felony, and then that made them ineligible to become an owner of a firearm. They lost their Second Amendment right. But however, in the state of New York right now, they have a program that they just implemented that if you were out of trouble for X amount of years, that they were going to seal your record, which would also kind of erase some of those felonies for guys who haven't gotten in trouble or haven't had a felony for 10 or 15 years or whatever. They got that on the table right now in the state of New York. But I believe in gun ownership, and I think that, you have a right to bear arms and protect yourself, protect your family, but the way the system is set up for us, I got an issue. So my issues with that Mumford Act, and not allowing the brothers to have that Second Amendment right.
Wow. I mean, I think, coming out the gate, you dropped some knowledge and some science, and I think we're going to build on that. Rook, what say you?
Well, I mean, it's going to be an interesting show. I say that because recently we've had mass murders in Texas, Buffalo, was recently in Philadelphia, and you've had even yesterday you had a very, very well-known judge in Wisconsin killed. We had shootings in Oklahoma. So basically, we have a good topic today, and I think some of the things we need to talk about when we know about the Senate, the Congress, the President, those type of things that are going to come up during our conversation. But at some point, we're going to have to deal with the effect of the NRA, and they just had a conference, and where ex-President Donald Trump spoke, was the lead speaker. I just mentioned the shooting in Texas. Governor Abbott did not go to the NRA conference showcase, whatever you want to call it, but he did send a videotape message. So we gonna have a good, interesting conversation. Story here today, because there's a lot to talk about, and I think to pass it over to you guys, it's this only the beginning. Gonna make a difference whether it's hot or cold. Right now we got a situation where something's gonna be done. We can sit here and talk about voting them out. That's the easiest thing to say, but right now it's bigger than that, because in the African American community don't vote locally. So when we're talking about people voting on a bigger stage, on a bigger platform, it's going to take a lot. So appreciate guys. We're going to have a good conversation. I hope the listeners enjoy and think of what we're going to talk about, because there's a lot going on. I'm just glad that we all came together to talk about this, because every day is something different, and it's going to get bigger, it's going to get worse. And as long as you still got the Donald Trumps of the world running around, and 60, 70, 80,000 people still saying that they stole the election, things are going to get worse.
Okay. So with that said, let me ask you, do you believe in gun ownership and gun control?
Well, I do, but everybody's talking about the Second Amendment and things like that. That's fine, but it's bigger, because everybody's not playing by the same rules. This is a different game now. We're talking about a whole different game. Of course, the Republicans and Democrats are going to fight back and forth. But even now, I saw something interesting last night. All the guys on the panel, there are more women that are carrying guns than men now. Whether you guys knew that or not, but that's something. But It's look, you got ghost guns. It's a lot to talk about. You have illegal guns. You got the urban, rural. There's so much going on, and everybody's caught up in the legalization of marijuana and the abortion with the Roe versus Wade. Gun control is a bigger topic than any time, and it's going to get worse, fellas.
We'll build on that. Bruce, what say you? Do you believe in gun ownership, and do you believe in gun control?
I definitely believe in the Second Amendment. I mean, America was founded on the gun. America was founded on the Remington, you know, and the Winchesters of the world. The infamous Buffalo Soldiers, the Black Cavalry. Their job was to go out west and to move Indians off of their land by any means necessary, which meant guns. So yeah, guns are a part of American history. The aspect that really bothers me, and it's like Terry was saying, it's the control of it. Yeah, everybody should have the right to own a gun. But now when we're talking AR, you know, AR-16s and AR, you know, and all of these other above the board type, instead of your Saturday night special for protection, this is where you start to have to examine, what do you need this for? Okay, you're a recreational shooter, I get it. But when you're going out and these are the weapons of quote unquote mass destruction that are being used in the Texas slaughter of children in Buffalo, that's where I have the issue at. It's, what are we selling these for? Those are things that armies, you know, use in overseas, and here they fought in wars with these things. What does the common folk of America need with one of these? So that's where the gun control has to, it has to start changing. But you know, that's a tough thing too, because now it's all about money. You know, it's not the political person in. And here's some food for thought. And I was thinking about this the other day. What major thing in America has happened in the last 50 years that has actually made a difference? So what major thing? I can only think of two. One is the seatbelt law. Click it or get ticketed, whatever the case was, everybody wears a seatbelt now. The other thing was, and then that was derailed after a while, was Obamacare. But what other major thing has happened after the civil rights in America? So we've been talking about gun control forever and a day since Columbine. Not a darn thing has happened yet. So how are we going to change that? Where is it going to happen and start to happen? It's my opinion.
Okay, I'll weigh in before I give Vince. I think that definitely have to have gun ownership. In fact, I think that I would encourage a statement behind my logic that we can get into later. Years ago, I had been assaulted in a robbery. I was stabbed 3 times in the back. I was lucky to escape with my life. So, you know, when I went through the calculus of that, I said, you know, if I had a firearm, probably that wouldn't have happened. So I went through that process. So, you know, I got involved. So I think there's definitely a need to have gun ownership. But I think the thing that alarms me the most is that this Second Amendment, which could arguably be said is archaic, its verbiage has to be re-examined. So in other words, the Second Amendment was really set up for militias to be well armed in the insurrection. And over America's history, the Second Amendment was used to also give, dare I say, vigilante or authoritative power to keep people that were in chattel slavery in check. We're no longer there. And I think that sometimes that gets translation as a defense of the Second Amendment right. But I definitely believe that at this point, because of all of the different occurrences of mass shootings, we have to address it. Now, I'll just give you some information that I happen to know. In Columbine, that year, which I believe was 1999, there were only 15 school shootings in 1989. 23 years later, that number's increased tenfold. So numbers geek, and statistically, I can tell you if we do nothing, that number in another 20 years is going to increase another tenfold. So, we've got to make a decision as not just us as a consortium of people just having the discussion, but what are we going to do in the public? I think the thing that discouraged me, but also made me very alarmed, was that in the last shooting in Uvalde, there have already been 6 versions of the truth of what transpired. And, while I'm not trying to tug at the heartstrings of the viewers, the worst thing you can do is lose a family member because you're asking why. And I think that the fact that the law enforcement agency and that particular municipality has shut down and has refused to answer questions, it does a psychological damage to these parents and these loved ones of these children, because they need answers now. That's going to allow them to heal. And the fact that we've got a police chief that was put on in the city council, yeah, it was an up and up election. But shouldn't there be mechanisms in our democracy that put a stop gap in this until he actually talks? I think to be fair and objective, there may be some concern about liability, but at the end of the day, there should minimally be a party line to help soothe these people. So I want to build on that, because that was really egregious in my opinion. And I'll turn it over to Vince. What's your perspective on gun ownership and gun control?
The gun is the worst invention in the history of man. Are you kidding me? The gun is horrible. The gun is horrible. It was invented to kill. It was the worst thing that was introduced in the continent. That was the beginning of the end for the continent too. No, the gun is horrible. Look, it's here now and people have it. And if you're going to let one person have it, you need to let everybody have it. I agree with that. But I have a problem with guns, period. Because I can't think of a single good thing that a gun can do. Anything that you say a gun can do, it's only a good thing because you're trying to prevent another bad thing from happening. That's the only good a gun can do. So the fact that we are at a point as beings that we think we need these things is a problem. Why do we need them? Who needs them? And why? Those are the questions, right? We need them because everybody else has them, or because some other person has them, or whatever. The problem is, why do they have them? What are they stockpiling these weapons for? Why do they need them? Same thing with missiles, same thing with bombs, same thing with all of those things. So I'm not going to sit here and act like, guns are okay. Guns are not okay. They kill. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want that on my conscience, knowing I didn't kill somebody. Seriously, for whatever reason, I killed them. That's just something I got to live with. So I got a big problem with the whole gun thing from beginning to end, because I got a problem with killing and people being killed. And the answer to killing, to me, isn't more killing. It just isn't.
I just got one question. What about sustenance living? That you have to hunt to eat. I don't
eat stuff. I don't eat stuff you have to hunt, man.
Oh no. Okay.
He's a vegan, so that's a good one. But Vince, you uncovered something that I think I'd like to go around the horn with your commentary. Why do you think that the populace in America feels the need to have a gun? Terry, what do you think?
Well, fear. If you think about it, we are 13% of the population, right? Our brown brothers and sisters make up another 14% to 15% of the population. Then you have the Asians that might be another 9% of the population, 8 or 9%. And then you have the Native Americans, who might be another 10% to 13% of the nation. If you put all those people together and they agreed to team up, align themselves together with some of the liberal Caucasians in America who have been disenfranchised, like the Jewish folks and stuff like that. If you put all us together in a unit, we have just become the majority in the country. And if we decided to get payback, or forced restitution for what we've been put through by the masses of, through the American genocide on all fronts, that's something to be afraid of, if you look at it that way. And that's why they need guns. And that's why they have to disarm as many of us as possible and arm themselves, because if we all got together on one accord and decided that we wanted to get a little payback for what we've been through, we could wipe them out.
Interesting. What do you think? Why do you think people feel guns in America?
Well, they're going to tell you it's protection, but I have a different angle on the whole thing. I mean, we can really open this discussion up as deep as you want. But here, where I reside here in the city of Newark, let me tell you how heavy this is. 2 weeks ago, first grader, 6 years old, brings a loaded 9mm to school. 2 weeks later, 2 days ago, 12-year-old brings a loaded 9mm to school. Charter schools. So my point in bringing that up is, we talking about the adults. What about the kids? Look at Buffalo, 18-year-old. Where does he get $3,000 to $4,000 to buy that type of artillery to kill somebody? If you look at what's going on, when I'm talking about the youth right now, then we can keep it moving. But if you look at what's going on, mass murders all across the country, in urban, suburban, and rural towns, school shutdowns every day from bomb threats now. Every other day, the kids the schools are being locked down, or they're either being shut down, or the kids are being dismissed now. When we talk about out in Texas, when you mentioned about the police chief with no radio, they probably never thought something like that could happen in a place like that. Like you said, it's 6 or 7, 10 different stories now. Everybody's lawyered up. But my point in bringing all that up is, it's deeper than just the adults in the Second Amendment. Every inner city's got the same problem: guns, crime. It's all balled up in one, like Cotton Come to Harlem. Everybody's running around with a gun now. Kids are walking around with book bags now with no books. They got guns and ammunition in there. Gun shows, accessibility to guns, the age limit now. They're fighting about that now. I think at some point, guys, what we need to really look at, not to get too political, but we got to look at ourselves now. I remember Vince did a commentary on talking about, how we giving our vote away the last time, if I'm correct. But we got to look at too how we living, African American peoples in these American ghettos. I hate to say it like that. We vote for the same people. They not doing nothing for us. Biden's been in office more than a year. He can't get nothing passed. I just said everybody's worrying about smoking weed, and since everybody's walking around on the job, at work, at church, the kids aren't learning nothing. Everybody's got a gun. Everybody's on the phone. These screens now. Everything is on the screens. Shoot them up. Violence. Every video game now, violence. You go anywhere in a rec center or a youth center, all the kids are on the computer. They not doing any homework, Bruce. They on there with watching violent stuff. It's the culture, the music. I'm guilty. I used to have rap shows on for 10 years. I stopped doing it because the people I had on my show on TV, they wanted to fight each other before the show started. I stopped that. But my point is, it's the music. It's what these kids are listening to. Everybody's on the screen now. Everybody is violent now. And toss it over to you guys. The little boy, Vince, that was 6 years old, he said he was going to shoot up every MF and teacher in the school. Where did he learn that at? Look at our culture. Our people got to wake up, man. I don't know if we got to go to another party or what. We got to wake up. We stuck in these hellholes and these ghettos. Everybody's killing each other, carjacking us up, shooting us up, mugging us up, raping us up. Ain't nobody working. They running the streets. I mean, how was it in every community? We talking about guns and stuff. It's everything with the crime. How you used to have, Bruce, one little section of the community where the crackheads, the dopeheads, and the fiends was. The whole city is like that now, everywhere, where black people live, and we okay with it. Why? Everybody's got a gun. They don't even tell you about some of all these schools, even the charter schools, the good kids, it's fear. Everybody's got a gun now. What happened? You guys got it.
Well, Bruce, from your perspective, why do you feel that everyone needs to have a gun?
I think there's a small percentage of people who have purchased a firearm for the protection of their property and their self. I think there's a larger majority of people who are out there who have purchased these, again, proverbial weapons of mass destruction to make up for the inadequacies that they have. They get it to have the power that they don't. They're the bullied kid. They're the kid that may be a little off kilter, the not popular kid, the other things. In the inner cities, okay, a lot of them have it for protection and others have it for that sense of power. Again, the inadequacies that they have growing up. They're not the popular kid. They're not on the sports team. They sit the bench. They're not the smartest in school. They don't really have a lot of friends. So guess what? They empower themselves with this weapon. And now I'm in control because with this weapon, I can control a lot. I can control your life right now. That gives me the power that I've never had before because I've been robbed of it because of whatever reason. So that's my take on it all, why people have these things. Again, there is a percentage, and it's just like anything. You have some great police officers out there, and you've got some really rogue ones, you know. You have some great politicians out there, and you have some really rogue ones. You have great teachers out there, you've got some really rogue ones. So in any population, in anything, just like gun owners, you have some great responsible gun owners that have it for the right reasons, maybe even recreational. And you have others who live a subsidiary. They have to earn their keep. The people in their shows on TV, you know, the Life Below Zero in Alaska, and people who move off the grid, and that's how they survive. But then you have the others who are just doing it because they need that power.
Interesting. So let me take it this way, because my brother, I love his passion, by the way, but he made me think about something, because this discussion is actually a microcosm of the dichotomy we have in the country. So what I'm saying is, we're looking at what we're being shown from the media aspect, because we're seeing these mass shootings in random places. And I had the conversation with Vince kind of before the show. Coming from North, you know, living in Chicago, you knew where you needed to be and where you didn't be. And dare I say, I'm going to go in from a perspective, there's a pathology in our neighborhoods, if that makes sense. Right now, he and I can get in a vehicle and go to the quote unquote that we once lived in. Bruce, you did, down the street. That ain't the same space that we had 40 years ago. It was a safe space. You could walk and go wherever. Your parents could go to the neighborhood store, the beauty, the Chinese, sit down, not take out restaurants. So
we can go to Ray's right on the corner.
You know where I'm going? There's a pathology that are in our communities that we know. Because there used to be a few killers, all of them, from way back when I could remember. I won't say any names, but in our neighborhood. But now, as Brooke says, there are a lot of killers. Everybody killer. If you don't know, and I think, you know, as I address the pathology in our communities, we've become desensitized to it. I really am. I mean, when I leave and I go somewhere, if I'm in a certain space, I'm not worried about law enforcement. If I happen to need some cash at 2 a.m, I'm, you know, a few blocks away. My head's on a swivel, and I know that something can happen, and I better be prepared to happen. And you know, I feel bad because events in theory, guns are bad, but if you've ever been accosted, or if you've ever, you know, felt unsafe, that's the next way, because unfortunately, that's the pathology. Now, let me flip the script. I think that a lot of the dominant cast feel that they need guns. That's a part of it. It's the pathology. But what we're actually seeing in real time is that randomnesses are now unpredictable, or as unpredictable in the hood. Like I said, living in Chicago, I knew just before 80% of where trouble would. I got to know people. I didn't go there. Once I knew ODs that, you know, gave me safe passage because there was a code at that time, I could go to Inglewood, you know, or Lawndale, you know, or Humboldt Park. Some of those neighborhoods that, you know, were not somewhere you would go for a puppy like. But this other side now, they have to, the dominant cast have to reconcile and acknowledge that this problem's not going to go away. You know, I'm so desensitized to the gun culture. When I see an event, you know what I do in full transparency? I hope that it's not someone that I know and I love. I actually hope it's not someone that represents our community. That's the account. Then I go, well, you know what? First of all, because we failed, deflection and mission, I can tell you with a high degree of certainty it's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen the next day, the next day, the next day, and the next day. So until we get to a critical mass of where the dominant cast really feels there's a need to change, this is going to continue. And that's scary, but it's also kind of a mindset that we have to adapt, because it is what it is. And a lot of people have been able to use cognitive dissonance in such a way to say, well, I'd rather have a gun than not have it. And remember, what we're starting to see in not one, but two events, the argument of, well, good guys prevent bad guys from acting out. We know that that's a fallacy, because in Parkland, if I jog your memory, an officer that was there that left the scene. And yet in Uvalde, we had a situation where one person was allowed to stay in an active shooting hour before.
Let me say one thing, guys. Listen, these police, these state troopers, what else is going on? They got families too. They trying to go home. They not running up in these buildings. They keep talking about who went in there first, how long it took, and the cars that went in. These people think about going home. They're their property, their kids. So I mean, look, this white supremacy that took over this country. You know, this prison industrial complex. When you talk about what's going on, it's something that's not going to go away anytime soon. Bruce, we still about 30 years later about some damn Bloods and Crips that have taken over our communities. Can't go to the park, can't go to the movies. Yeah. Grandmother, brother, auntie, uncle, and all that. Everybody running around to my uncle, this and all that. They can't sit on the porch. They can't go get a picket. Listen, man, something's gonna have to change. I mean, I'm tired of saying the same thing about this. I talk about this every week on TV. I'm tired of it, man. Something's gonna have to change. Black mayors, white governors. It's a whole conspiracy now. You got East Orange, Patterson, Newark, Irvington, all these cities like that, just where we live at, where I know what I see every day. The same people are running these inner cities. We're not going to get into Detroit. Darren's been in Chicago. You guys have traveled all over the world. But what I'm saying is that it's the same thing. We just had an election. I told you about the last time we were on the air. 400,000 people in North. You could Harold seat in Newark with not even 14,000 votes. So what's that telling you? When we talking about voting, vote them out, vote the Republicans out. We gotta come up. That's why we got these minds here. You gotta come up with something different. I ain't got nothing. I told you enough. The Paynes, the Tuckers, the Barackers, the Jameses, the Adebatos, the Rices. You gotta get rid of all these dudes, man. I know all of them. They all been on my TV show, but I let them use me. That's okay. But everybody has to go. You're gonna have to clean house. This gentrification now in Newark. They get ready to build containers in places like Bradley Court, one of the worst housing projects in North. I'm just bringing up, you can't even walk there. It's like a black market with babies, guns all over the place. Kids not even going to school. They stopped going to school 3 months ago. So my point, and I'm going to throw it back over to you guys, something's going to have to happen. They got these racist websites. Nobody's talking about it till they kill 10 and 15 people. Oh, he was on there. He posted all this stuff. He had a legend. He had all this. How did nobody not know that? I'm telling you, our people going to have to wake up. They okay with it. Walk around the hood and see. They all right with it. Everybody's walking around with booty shorts, fur slippers, 20 pounds of weave on, 10 pair eyelashes. They cool with this. The kid 6 years old in the first grade. The kid 12 years old with the gun. They watching these drug dealers, gang members, and ex-cons in their mama's section of the apartments, hiding the gun up in the ceiling, hiding the gun in the wall, in the drawer behind the refrigerator. They watching them. They think it's cute. Kids walking past there and they're smoking weed, drinking Hennessy, sniffing cocaine. Kids watching how to load a gun. Where a kid find out 6 years old about how to even use a gun? And before I throw it back to you guys, I want to hear Vince. Listen, man. They got a video, a kid, 4 years old, white boy. He at the shooting range now. The white people are teaching their kids how to shoot guns. Our kids is running around, won't even read a book, Professor.
Vince, what say you to round this conversation? Why do you think that people feel the need to have these firearms?
Oh well, like Bruce said, there are different reasons for different people. Different people have different rationales. Some people feel like they need personal protection, like he said. I think everybody, well, you got to go to the origin of this, right? The weapons originally came so that they could take this land away from the British, who took this land away from the people who were here. You know what I'm saying? So that's what guns are used for, to coerce people into doing things. You know what I'm saying? And so this is what we have. And people get the guns because, okay, I either want to get a gun so I can take something from somebody, or I get a gun to keep somebody from taking something away from me. That's why people have the guns now. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about going hunting for food. I'm talking about this assault weapon and shooting people stuff. And I do believe there's a certain segment of our population that thinks this country is going to be taken from them. They do. And they got the guns both from any kind of assault from outside or within. They're ready for a war, be it a civil war or a war with another faction. Doesn't matter. I believe they've been preparing for this for years. Louis C.K. had a little routine. I think I got it saved on my hard drive somewhere. I mean, he talked about it. It was a joke. But in the joke he was talking about, he was like, and the routine, if you can find it on the internet, because it's been scrubbed off the internet, the routine is called being white. And this is Louis C.K.'s routine. And he basically talks about, look, we've had it wonderfully on this planet up until now. But let me tell you, in the future, we're going to get it. And we're going to get it bad. And I think at the point of that joke is where the fear lies, is that some people think retribution is imminent. And they get these guns to protect themselves. I agree. But that's not everybody who wants a gun. But that's some of the people who want, the replacement people, those people. Some people are just scared. look, the fact that we feel we got to kill people is a problem for our species. It's a problem. We got to stop, and we got to go back to that. I know it's nice, it's cute to have a gun. You know, you got guns in your house. You know, you feel protected. Blah blah. You know, safety isn't a real thing because you can feel safe and not be safe, and you can be safe and not feel safe. So safety is a state of mind, and so long as you make people feel unsafe, they're gonna always reach for something that's gonna make them feel safer. And you know, part of the reason they feel unsafe is because we exist in this land. So that's enough for them to get a gun. So we got to go to the origins of all of this stuff. And if we don't remove all of that, we're only going to be collecting guns so that we can one day use them on each other. That's why I don't want them, because I know that's where it's going to go.
Okay, so I mean, that's eloquent analysis, and I agree with you, but you know, what's the flip side of it? And I just want to share a story with you that I actually experienced. So I first get a concealed carry permit about 25 years ago, and I go to a gun show up in upstate New York. And what you just said was what I observed, and I'll never forget it. I saw a cat just buying arms. He says, I want this, 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 and this. And I just looked at him, and I just asked myself, I mean, because I was new to the environment. It's like, what is he? One man, what does he need that for? You know what I mean? Then I looked at the literature because I did understand that many rifles are semi-automatic. Some are single shot, but fully automatic are outlawed. But what I remember seeing, again, over 20 years ago,
$30 can make any weapon fully automatic.
Correct. Not within earshot, but you could see the manuals of how to convert them. File the clip off. You know what I'm saying? So my point is, I'm sharing that story. That's what made me start to look at some of the concerns that Vince raised, because from my perspective in doing analysis, there is a large disparity between gun availability and gun ownership between the races. And I'm not trying to make it a race thing, but the truth of the matter is, if history is any indicator, right, the dominant caste did use the Remington repeater to actually make sure that they were able to take the land from the indigenous people. And then subsequent upgraded models were used to fight over whether or not African Americans should be free. And now we find ourselves in 2022 justifying who should have them, why they should be used, and whether or not there's even a problem. Terry, what's your input on that?
Wow, man, you guys, you know, this whole thing is deep because just a week or so ago, not far from my house, they had a gun show. And there's a lot of literature going around, you know, being passed around to people who they think are like-minded, warning about this replacement theory that they have out there, and arm yourself. And we have to be very, very careful, you know, because it's bound to happen. Just like Rook said, it's people out here who are preparing themselves for, I guess, what they calling the modern day Armageddon. You know, people are ready for war. But we also have to prepare ourselves for war too. I believe that, you know, by hook or by crook. You know, we can't sit by and be docile and talk about we're going to pray on it. We're going to pray it away. You know, right now, the way things is going, we have to refer back to the Bible to the point where it says eye for an eye. You know, so the brothers and sisters have to arm themselves at this point. You know, we're not the ones out here doing mass murdering for the most part. We do stupid things with our guns in the community, but on a larger scheme of things, with what happened with the insurrection and this Donald Trump era, and in fact, with just some of my neighbors, I feel safer because I know what I got in my house, So we have to arm ourselves, and be prepared. But on another note, I was listening to Rookie talk, and you kind of scared the shit out of me, bro, when you talked about these young kids, because I work within the school system in Newark, from time to time, Irvington, East Orange. I didn't hear about all those situations with kids going to school with guns because they have metal detectors. How are they getting past? I mean, you might know, and if you can answer this for me, how are they getting past the metal detectors with guns in those schools down there? Because I go to KIPP Academy. I'm in practically all the schools in Newark, and every school in Irvington. How's it happen?
Hey, before Rook answers, I just want to share something because I happen to be surfing the channel, and even at our convention and audience, it's regardless of your political ideology that you listen to everything. So I happen to be listening to them because I wanted to see what the tenor of the conversation would be after 19 babies were killed. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that one of the headliners of the NRA tour happened to make a statement in his misinformation campaign saying, well, schools in urban areas are safer. And you want to know why? Because they have metal detectors and armed guards. And I just, that stroked me. Now, Rook was actually teaching in the school system, 20 years ago, and it was safer. So you give that perspective, brother.
Okay. First, I'm gonna answer Terry's question. Well, it's happening like that because you got 3 and 4 security guards. They on the phone. They playing with. They don't want to mess up their nails. The guard is running around there getting him a bag of weed or a sniff. I mean, you ask me, I'm gonna be honest with you. Somebody's going to the store. They leaving the door open, crack. Somebody around here don't want the principal or administrator to know that they left. They turning the metal detector off. Somebody now actually in some of the public schools, to be honest with you, to their credit, to go in, you got to take a picture, and they have to ask you your date of birth and all that. In some schools, but again, what we talking about, Terry, that's work to some people. But why I got to do all that? You look around, some of the guards, they getting high, they buying drugs from the kids, parents, and relatives. You see the crossing guard, she's standing there, supposed to be watching. I'm telling you what's going on. She's supposed to be watching the kids going in the building. She's on the corner talking to all the mothers that don't work, that bring their kids there. Now, they ain't got nothing to do but go home to a drug dealer or an abusive man beating them upside their head. So they're going to stand on the corner for 3 hours in the morning and gossip. So what happens when you say how they getting, they do have metal detectors supposedly, but nobody's monitoring to it. I gotta go get my breakfast. I'm gonna turn the switch off. Or you got a situation where a female guard. It's a lot of them. Ain't that many men. They stopped working in these schools as security guards years ago. It's basically,
Right.
being honest with you, all women now. What they doing?
Yeah.
They outside arguing with their baby father, their boyfriend. They done left the door cracked so they can run back in. It's just a lot of stuff now. See, when I worked in the school, me and my father worked together, and God bless, I had an opportunity to do that. Me and my dad worked in the school together. I was a teacher. He was a drug coordinator. We both coached basketball. So what I'm trying to share with you guys is that, see, we had to respect the buildings. One thing, football, basketball team, just the kids in general. We worked at Weak Rank High School. We knew every neighborhood because we was out there after school. They seen us. We would get word in the morning about a fight or a food fight in the cafeteria. So me and my father, when we got word of it, we was like, look, when they came in, they had 3 periods, freshman, sophomore, and the juniors, sixth, eighth at the same time. We let them know. I wish one of y'all would throw some cake or jello on my suit or my clothes that I worked hard for. And the other thing I want to share real quick with you, Vince, The vice principals then were men that were strong. They was from the community. They went to school and came back. Some were athletes, some weren't, but they were good men. They knew the kids. We used to walk outside. Let's say Weequahic High School is on Chancellor Avenue, right? After school, we all walked out. The kids, the coaches, the football, the basketball coach, the three vice principals. We walked out with the kids to Lyons Avenue, 4 or 5 blocks across. We walked to Elizabeth Avenue. We walked on Chancellor Avenue. We walked through the hood with the kids to let them know y'all ain't gonna fight out here. See, now, real quick, share this with you. After school, the teachers in their car before the kids get out of school. They gone because they don't live there.
You're right. You're
That's
right.
what's happening. So they don't live
You're
there.
right.
So they're gone. So they hear about a fight. They like, yo, I'm gonna move my car at lunchtime so I can get out of here quicker. That's what they're doing. They'll get to see them real quick. I mentioned earlier we started talking, guys. The prison industrial complex has ruined us. I'm sitting there asking you what about the kids, 6-year-old, 12-year-old. They father, they stepfather, they brother, they uncle, they grandfather. They in prison. So that's what they know. That's what they doing on the weekend. Before, years ago, they had Jamesburg and other places they had that was for the criminals that was trying to, the young boys that wasn't 18 and all that. But now, and then they had Montgomery School, they had Woodland, they had Floyd Patterson. That's for the kids that was acting up. Real quick to the co-hosts on the show, you brilliant guys. Now they all in one school. The bad boys went to the bad school. The bad girls went to a bad school. They separated them. Guess what? They all in one pot now. So you're getting your coat taken, you're getting beat up, you're getting jumped. Everybody's getting stabbed in school. They getting stabbed after school. And the reason you don't hear it is because by me being in the media, following the stuff and hearing everything that go on in Newark, they don't want you to know about it. I haven't heard nothing else about that boy 6 years old bringing a loaded Glock. The one at 12 years old. Because guess what? What school you mentioned something about Irvington? When you did stuff like that before, they expelled you from the district. Vince is an administrator. Listen to this real quick. They expelled you from the district. You can't do that now because if this kid brought a gun to school, if I'm a parent of Irvington, Orange, East Orange, Patterson, or Jersey City, I don't want my kid in there with him. He brought a gun to school. So now you got to do one thing. Probably send him down south or hide him somewhere. They don't want the media to know about it because they don't want people to talk about it. They're either going to have to be homeschooled or get a tutor. You can't put him back at that age back in there with no kids in the 1st and 2nd grade. That's what's going on. Listen. Where I work at, we got free summer camps real quick in the summer. But that's the job that I signed up for because guess what? Free we babysitters, be honest with you. I'm telling you what all starts now. 7 to 13, right? Free breakfast and free lunch. Sad to say, it's all the worst kids in the neighborhood. When I go to school, when I go to work in the morning, when I ride down in my car, I see all the mothers, the fathers, the grandmothers. They all on the porch drinking and smoking at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. These are their kids. So you go to school, that's what they sending you. You work in a rec program, that's what they sending you. You work in a church program where they trying to help the community, that's what they sending you. So everybody's a tough guy now. The little kids that's punks in school, they walk around talking about they in a set, blood or crip. And they never fought a day in their life and done nothing, but everybody's a tough guy now. These grown women, stop your daughters from being on Facebook talking about they gonna kill some girl they don't even know over a crazy boy. Well, everybody's an internet gangster now talking about what they're gonna do to somebody. Record labels, real quick. If you ain't got a record talking about something negative, look what's going on. The entertainers want to be thugs. The thugs want to be entertainers. And to close that out, look at Young Thug and Gun in them. Look what they doing now. They catching on, they putting the entertainers and all that because they hide behind for protection for these gangs. We back to the guns again. So now what happens now, they're using their lyrics against them now. For the people that's listening to this, that's what they're doing. Young Slime Entertainment and all that stuff in Atlanta. They locking them up. That's white supremacy. Okay, I don't want my young white kids growing up listening to that. So y'all got protection with the gangs. Y'all running around with, with all millions of dollars now. You know why they got them real quick? They got them because they bailed out close to 50 people, gang members that couldn't afford to get out. They wanted Young Thug, popular entertainer rapper now. Gunna, all these dudes from Atlanta, but it's going on all over the country now. All these rappers now, they taking their lyrics and using it against them. They going to get these little Jewish white lawyers. They locking them up. They making them spend that money now.
Well, two things or three things, because we had a lot of things that were covered. One, the views expressed on our show are not reflective of Gynesis Radio, but the people that are expressing those comments. That's number one. Number two, I think you hit the nail on the hammer with respect to its culture. Now, people that know the Johnson family know you just weren't rolling up on us. There was, from my sister to this guy to me, where the entire school has followed us home when there were problems. And my dad would say, as long as it's fair, anybody, and he'd make you fight. Am I making that up? He'd make you fight. And afterwards, after the beatdown, we'd shake hands. And there wasn't no losses at that particular point in time. That's changed because at one point, there was that ability for us as a people to solve our differences without violence. So something's changed. And I think to try to tie it together, it's the accessibility to guns. Mm-hmm. Right now in the 80s, there was a pipeline specifically from Virginia and North Carolina and South Carolina to flood our communities with guns. I knew where to get a GAT on 125th, off 125th for about $35, $40. You could get a 9 for about $125. Now, this was in the 80s. I don't know what the prices are, but that was a reality. And you had to make a decision at that time if you felt bullied. So, see, that's why I discount this bullying. Bullying has been inherent in communities of all races and faces for years. The solution wasn't getting a gun, and I want to make sure that we have that conversation in full transparency in this forum. Because those of us that have traveled abroad don't see the same problem. So are we only saying, if we use that faulty logic, that we only have mental illness in the United States? Or is it the accessibility and availability of firearms that do that? And so I think, as part of, I want to use part of this show when we get there to talk solutions. But we've really got to start putting accountability on the elected leaders that are giving us the false narrative. Because again, like I said, I've been a part of situations growing up where there was violence, okay, but you handled it different. And I think the reason I'm bringing that up is this culture. All of a sudden, our first instinct, rather than just, knuckle up, is to use a gun. And that, going back to what Vince was saying, trying to tie it around, that's the worst option. They usually say your first option should be your best option. But when we devolve as a society, that's actually transposing itself where people are saying, my first option is going to be a gun, which is the worst option because it ends life. Vince, what say you? You've been a little quiet because we've been passing it around.
Well, I'm kind of losing, because Rook covers so many things. I kind of lost the original train of thought.
Yeah.
He was going. I was with him. He took us on a ride. I kind of like the ride. So bring me back to where we're supposed to be.
Well, we went from why do people need the gun to now the culture. So when we were talking about or getting his testimony about schools, now you're teaching at a higher level because it's a college. Mm-hmm. My first question would be, do you have to manage through or navigate or worry about that?
I just don't. I mean, remember I said safety is how you feel. It's not a real thing. I might not be safe. We had a couple of guys who were potentially, that way. But what am I going to do about it? I can't go to work worried every day, man. I can't do that.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because I know without, disclosing where you work, how was that handled once that level or that concern was raised or escalated?
Oh, this guy, he was putting stuff out there on YouTube. So,
Mm.
and so the public safety got a handle of it, and they just banned him from campus.
Mm.
He didn't come back, and I think his parents had to come and get all his stuff, something like that. But he had some issues. He was, you know, he was military and everything. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Yeah. So he might have suffered something, you know, when he was over. You know, when he was wherever he was.
You know,
he was a good guy. I had him as a student in my class. He was a good guy.
Okay, so he may have had some type of emotional issues.
I don't know what it was.
So, but that, you know, that brings a good question, and I just want to feel this because, you know, again, I think it's egregious, but will try to back up my logic. You know, we're saying that, you know, when these acts happen, that it's indicative of some type of mental problem or defect, but then we've sent historically millions, literally millions of people to fight for freedom with the expectation that they take a life.
Right.
So when those happen, do they come back? You know, I mean,
that goes all the way back to what I was saying. How could killing amount to anything? You know, it just begets more killing, and that's where we are now. We actually have, like you said, it's normalized. We've accepted killing
Correct.
as something that we should be doing. That's not something we should be doing. We shouldn't be killing other human beings. I don't care who we are. And our response to a human being killing a human being is killing them.
Mm.
I just got a problem with that whole deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, how does you know? So you don't like the outcome, you kill them, or they do something bad enough, you kill them. Well, where do you draw that line? What's bad enough? Because you know that line is being moved as we speak.
so
Now,
let me ask,
all an officer has to do is feel fear to justify killing you. What did D.L. Hughley say? The most dangerous person for a black man to be is in a white person's imagination.
Yeah. Deep. So let me ask you this, because we talk, you know, the subject, and I'm trying to read some of the comments, the commentary around desensitization of all of this is going on. And before we pass that around, I've said this, you know, with my wife. I said, you know, I am desensitized. You know, I lost a great friend of mine through gun violence in Chicago, you know, and it changes you. And I just wanted to make a personal testimony so you know where my head is. I've seen 3 shootings in my life, and I've lost a friend, and I've been shot at. And when you hear, like I said, it changes you. I don't think people, if they've had that experience, when you can actually hear the revolutions of a bullet when it goes by your head. It's you'll never forget. It's like it's so fast, because that's what, you know, basically kills you. The force associated when it's expelled out of the barrel. But my point is, now I'm at a point where I know that it's going to continue. Now, my mechanism for survival, and I think I know Terry on the surface, and I can almost feel he feels the same way. It's almost like it's kill or be killed, because that's the survival mechanism that we have to have, not just within our own communities, because we talked about that pathology. I'm talking about, you know, I live in a rural area as he does. You know, one time in our development, someone actually posted that they were KKK. And automatically, when that happened, you know, certain things happened in the Johnson household, because it was like, okay, well, if it's like that, we on, you know, a 5-alarm alert, because we can't let that happen. And I think where I'm going with that is that, you know, we can be desensitized to it, but we have to stay on post, as Malcolm X would say. You need to stay on post, because in the world we live in today, we don't know when these forces, like the great replacement theory, that's normalized, by the way, and actually has been a subject matter on Fox News for over 460 times over the past 18 months in one segment or another. That's resonating to people. See, we look at it differently and go, oh, what's that really? Because we are the receiving end of that narrative. But what's being internalized by some people is that there's a purposeful narrative to make America browner and thus limit for the current dominant caste. That generates fear, that generates resentment, that generates an ability to feel that it's necessary to use force, deadly force, to support their idea of democracy.
D, and it's also fueling the lie that America is not responsible for its own people, right? So you have, disenfranchised, white people in this country who, there are some people telling them that their problem are other Americans. Now, the problem is the fact that the United States isn't serving its citizenry appropriately. They're not. None of us should be struggling in the richest country on the planet. None of us. And the fact that any of us here can struggle is a problem. So we have some people that are so super rich, they can't even enjoy all of their riches. Or we have some people who are so super poor, they don't even have a hope of having a normal life. You know what I mean? That's crazy. Now, I don't know what that is. Now, also there was an article you posted, earlier in the week about when did we become so rich? Because most of us were poor. Did you post that article, Dave?
Yes, I did. And it was a rhetorical thing because I knew the answer. Sometimes I like.
Yeah. Right. But the thing about it is we got all of these other causes for the violence of gun violence as well. You can't leave out, we talked about the racism and all that, but you can't leave out the He-Man syndrome, this toxic masculinity, and I need a gun to feel like I'm a man. I need to shoot somebody to feel whole. You can't leave that out. That's all an extension of this nonsense too. But I'm telling you, us fellas, we ruining this planet, man. We need to change. The way we going, it ain't working.
I don't want to discount your point, but I do want to make sure that I address some of the direct input from the people that are watching the show. And someone asked to please discuss the relevance and the power of the NRA. And I want to start that, and I'll pass it around. 20 some odd years ago, I actually joined the NRA. I was a member of the NRA. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to make something up. And I'll tell you why. Because when I first got that privilege of firearm ownership, I said, well, I need to belong to the NRA. It was my thought. I'll fess up. So I was for a year, I got involved. But I happened to go to a function at the NRA, National Rifle Association, the National Rifle Association. But when who was there and when I listened to what was being said, it became clear to me that it wasn't I'll say, equitable representation and an equitable narrative of true firearm ownership. My proof of concept is that we've had two visible instances where people that were African American used a firearm or were involved in a firearm that didn't end well with them. The first person would be Breonna Taylor's boyfriend. A lot of people don't really look at the other part of the story because when that no-knock warrant occurred in Kentucky, her boyfriend had a registered firearm and he had a permit to carry. And he actually fired back at the police officers. They arrested him and charged him with attempted murder. Nary one time, no member or lobbyist or representation from the NRA came to his aid, defended his right legally at all. The second one was Philando Castile. We saw that live when his girlfriend, so desensitized to violence, she gave us a narrative step by step of his execution. He was a legal gun owner. So my point is, as we talk about the NRA, and this is just my experience based on not vicarious understanding, but in some of those discussions that there to, one, perpetuate the protection of the Second Amendment in its oldest form, to be the lobbyists' continuum to buy these politicians off, which is why they look the other way, because there's a lot of money that comes from the gun lobby into the politician's hand. Now, I want to just, before I open it up for your guys' point of view, remember the first point. The NRA, their mission is to fight the Second Amendment in its original form. But the problem with that, keeping it in its original form, is that America was a very different country when the Second Amendment was created. There was a significant portion of people in bondage, and there was a specific reason in ensuring that people were armed. In the event there was an insurrection for freedom, not for tyranny. Terry, what say you?
Well, the NRA job is to empower people who don't look like us, for one, and two, to sell guns. There are more guns. I just found out there's more guns in America than there are people. In fact, they said that, imagine you driving on the highway and every car that you see has 10 guns in it, you know, and that blew my mind. I've been thinking about that all week. But the job of the NRA is to sell guns, you know, and like you said, they're going to take some of those profits and put them in the pockets of the politicians and the lobbyists who are going to make sure that their agenda is pushed forward. And it sucks, but that's all I got to say about the NRA. And, you know, again, these are not the views of Gynesis Radio, but those of us that's on here talking. And that's my 2 cents, and you keep the change.
All right, Rook, what's your take on this NRA business?
Well, my take on the NRA is basically piggybacking off of what Terry said, and that's because if you look at, we haven't talked about the PACs who contribute money to these candidates' campaigns. The NRA is the number one contributor to just about everybody, from McConnell's to the Trump, to everybody else that controls the Republican Party and in positions of power, even the ones that aren't politicians. The NRA are their biggest. If you look at the shootings that went on in Buffalo and Texas, if you look at the Fox News of the world, not to give them any credit, but what they're all doing, if you look at MSNBC and CNN, they're telling you one thing and addressing killings. In turn to Fox, they're telling you, they're not even talking about the grief of the families of the people that got killed. They're telling you, oh, there they go again. The Democrats are trying to take away your freedom of speech and your Second Amendment. So if you're not really aware of what's going on out here in the world, it makes you wonder, well, wait a minute. Here you got people got killed in Buffalo and Texas, Philadelphia. They just killed the judge in Wisconsin. They're constantly telling people to forget about these killings, to concentrate on keeping their second. I'm with Vince on this. I don't like these guns because too many people got them now, and it's out of control. And right now, they don't have a way to stop it. To go back to the NRA, real. There's so much money in this, man. Everybody's talking about everything else, but they are not going to stop. You would think with what happened with these mass murders that's going on as first, they still had their own pension.
Yeah.
With Donald Trump as the headliner, and he did that. So they weren't consoling the people that got killed in Texas and Buffalo and all over with these mass murders. They're still telling you, forget about that. They're telling you go get more guns and ammunition. So that's what we're gonna have to wake up to. And to me, it still goes back to even things that go on in the crime in the inner cities. Your local councilmen, these black mayors who got you fooled thinking they're doing something for you. They're beholden to these white governors, like in New Jersey with Murphy. He controls all these black governors, and it's crazy because, not to get too political, he he controls them because they bring him votes. He lost that last election. I'm glad he's getting out of here. You're going to have Republican governor in New Jersey, and whether you like it or not, as long as this NRA is going and piling with stockpiles of money to these campaign people, the Republican Party, let's face it, you're going to have another Republican president. You know, let's be honest, Biden's not doing anything. You know, I mean, you people run around here while these mass murders are going on. You got the baby formula going on. You got the stuff with the abortion going on now. It's like real quick. This is the new plantation. It's all boiled in one. The uneducated slaves and black people, ghetto America, welfare, unemployment, the homeless, gay rights, abortion, uncontrollable crime, legal marijuana. It's all tied in one knot, and that's what they're throwing at us now. We confused, man. Our people don't know what's going on. How many trying to give people information about what's going on here in the world concerning the gun control? Most people now, they could care less about this until it happens to somebody in their family.
Exactly.
We stop. It's a shame because I don't see what's going to happen until you start. When things happen here in our town, they don't even have a press conference. I used to write for the Star Legend. They don't tell you nothing. If you don't have your ear to the street, you're not getting from the news, the media, Channel 12, they don't tell you nothing. So if you're not concerned with what's going on in your community, like we are, and trying to inform people, you lost because the kids are not reading, they not studying, they don't read encyclopedias now. Everybody's on the phone now. The kids addicted to the phone, the adults addicted to the phone, the mailman's on the phone, the cop is on the phone. Everybody is doing something else. They could care less what happens out here in our society unless something happens to their family. But to wrap it up, our biggest problem is these guns because it's all over. Look, real quick, and you guys got it. Take New York, for instance, real quick. Terry, Vince, Darren.
Yeah.
Okay, you got a black mayor there. That's good. He got that. But everything, he's only going to be in there 4 years. You know, his time was good, right place, right time. And I don't have anything against him. He'll be in there 4 years. They're going to put a Latino or a woman in there. He was a policeman. I'm not blaming him. Cops getting shot and more crime there since he got in office, if you really look at it. And the last thing we haven't talked about, the effects with this gun from the immigration on the border. Biden and Kamala Harris haven't done nothing. They won't even go over it. You see all these people coming over here that's doing crimes from other countries, just coming here over the border. You got 20 people on the border patrol and 20,000 trying to get in. How many people are they going to stop? Look at the crimes that's being committed. When we talking about where they from, who's in there. They're coming over here with guns. The draw tells we didn't talk about that. Hey, listen, man, these guns, I'm convinced, again, these guns are ruining, oh man, everybody wants a gun now. Half the people don't even need a gun.
Okay, now this is
Wow.
the first time on air you will probably hear my brother and I won't say we have the diametrically opposed views, but I'm going to challenge this and I'm going to tie it to politics, and then I want to wrap this up with a solution-oriented mode as we go around the horn and talk about what we feel our solution should be to the gun problem. Now, my brother brings a very valid point in stymied efforts that Biden has, but to the group, because I think we all have a common interest, here's the concern / I'll say thing to be cognizant of. As we get closer to the midterms in 2024, in my humble opinion, the question shouldn't be, or the narrative shouldn't be, what the Democrats haven't done for us. We should be looking at it through the lens of what the Republicans are trying to do to us. And the reason I say that is because theoretically, hindsight being 2020, from a logical standpoint, November 5th, we should have been moving on as a nation. But there was a concerted effort for a big lie to be perpetuated to this point, where at least in the Commonwealth where I live, a governor is on the ballot that's an actual denier. So basically, he's running to become the governor of a state that he feels isn't a legitimate democracy now. And that should concern you, me, and everyone else. And what we're finding as we uncover this is not just one person. You know, when we look at Georgia, which is one of the more diverse states, you had an ex-president say, if we could find one more vote than the vote that he lost by, we'll be fine. And, you know what I'm saying? So I'm saying, you know, regardless of our political ideology, we have to look at it through that lens, because if people are willing to perpetuate a lie to stay in power, they're willing to perpetuate violence as a means to an end to stay in power, based on this fear mongering that's going. The caravans are coming. You know, remember, equitable housing that was a code. You know what I'm saying? Because what's happening is the same message that goes to. You've got people that are coming into the less desirable areas to buy them up for gentrification purposes. So while I won't wallow in the political piece, let's be very careful as we use our voices to come out here to say, hey, you know, it takes two to tango. Theoretically, with a gun control issue, it shouldn't be a 50-50 or 48-52 dichotomy of thought. You know, I think we all agree. We either think there should be control, or we should just stock up and you know, figure out what happens. And sadly, I think that's the direction we're going. So as we get ready to close, let's go around the horn. And the question simply is, how do we resolve this? Do we, A, just pray that the elected people in power change our condition? 2, stop up, blow it up, and just until it burns itself down? Or 3, we just keep stroking and try to get elected leaders that are addressing the issue? Or 4, some proactive answer that you feel from the heart? Terry, you go first.
Well, all I can say is this. We have to prepare ourselves clearly for the revolution. And we have to arm ourselves, you know, and be prepared. And then we have to go back and re-educate the fathers and the father figures in our community to stop the black on black gun violence that's happening there, and create a new narrative for our children, so we don't have the 6-year-old and the 10-year-old and the 13-year-old coming to school with weapons. But for the most part, we have to be prepared for what's going to happen. It's clear. The dog whistle has been blown, and you know, just like Vince, I'm not crazy about guns. I'm not all about killing other human beings, but we have to. It's either fight or flight. We can't pray our way through it, and we can't run from it. You know what I mean? So we just got to arm ourselves and be prepared. I'm just gonna leave it there.
All right, what do you say?
Well, my closing comment is, if you wait for our people to vote, you're going to be waiting a long time. It's the destruction of the inner cities, the gentrification, the horse and pony show by elected officials that have cooned us for years. And the Republican Party is saying, well, the black people will keep voting for the same Democrats and they're still living in the same conditions. And the Democrats are trying to tell us the reverse about the Republicans. At some point, you have to open your eyes and see what's going on. I've been in here all my life, other than way to school in North Carolina State University. But it's very hard for me to understand when I look at our community, live here, work here, and everything. How in the world could we still be living in the same conditions with the same leadership for the last over 50 years, and nothing has changed in our community, and we're okay with it? Everybody's running around live with a phone. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. At some point, I don't know what's going to take the new generation. If you look at it real quick before I turn it with events, if you look at now, you got kids 18 years old that don't even vote, not thinking about registering to vote. So if you look at that, you say, well, how's it going to change? There's no young leaders here. There's nobody under 30 years old on the city council. The young people are doing something else. They're into right now. They're more interested in what's going on in violent rap world or strip clubs or video music or sad to say what's going on with the Kardashians. So I'm serious. Our people are caught up in all the wrong stuff right now. We don't care what's going on. Really. You could do anything to us right now, and in the meantime, to close it, toss it off to our buddy Vince. They shooting the cops, they shooting the preachers, they shooting your relatives. Guns are everywhere. It's uncontrollable now. You can go on the internet and find out how to make a gun now. They're not even scared now. It's crazy. Here's the last part, Vince. It's a mass murder, and the nuts that's doing it, after they kill everybody, now they killing themselves. So I mean, why don't you just kill yourself? You're gonna kill all these people, and it's sad to see. No matter what race or religion you are, we live in a gun crazy world.
Vince, what say you?
All right. First, there was a comment about the NRA. You know, the answer to the NRA isn't destroying the NRA. The answer to the NRA is organizing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to join the NRA. Just form your own rifle organization and have your own stuff. If they're not going to do anything for you as a member, you can just have your own organization. You can start your own. I don't understand why we think that everything we do has to be under every umbrella. We can create our own umbrellas. That's first. Number two, okay, we're going to stockpile all these guns for this revolution that's coming. And I'm not saying that if a revolution get here, you shouldn't be ready to fight it. I don't know. But who is it that we're going to be fighting and stockpiling these guns for? And if that's the case, don't they already know that? So shouldn't there be a different strategy for that? I think the real revolution is not going to be a violent one. I don't think it is. I think we're beyond that. I think if we violently do anything else on this planet, we're going to destroy this planet. So what we need to think about is, how do we make this change in a way that can't be reversed without violence? And I believe that way but what happens is, the first thing we have to change is ourselves. Before we can ask anybody else to stop putting their foots in our butts, we got to stop bending over. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So, and if we don't do that, I don't care what they're doing. We're sitting here, we're not doing what we're supposed to do for ourselves. Be it gun violence. No, we're not snitching, right? So somebody could come up to our neighbor and blow them away, and we know who it is, and we won't say nothing. Mm-hmm. So we're still in our neighborhood scared, just as scared as we would be if we told on the guy. That don't make no sense. No, people need to know when they come in our neighborhoods, they couldn't come in our neighborhoods with that nonsense. Period. And if it's our nephews, our sons, our daughters, our nieces, our brothers, our sisters, you know what? You ain't here for us. You're not a part of the community. If you hear killing, you're hurting people, you're not a part of this. You got to go. We're going to turn you over to the man, let him deal with you. That's how we got to be. But we keep looking to somebody else for a solution that lies within ourselves. We ain't going to get it that way. The best way to solve this problem is say, what am I going to do? What am I going to change? Who am I? What am I doing wrong that's helping this situation?
Wow.
That's it.
Whoa. Well, I'll have the final crack at it. And, with a show like this, there's no necessarily uplifting or positive way to end it, because I think that the pragmatic group of educated brothers that we are, we know that I think that there's an intersection of our perspectives that we can pretty much count. If we don't help ourselves, no one will help us. That's the first piece.
Right.
Number two, we must stay on post. Again, I think the collective wisdom is I don't want to have bins, but like I said, I knew at one point I was pretty prepared with this, and I was pretty fast. So given any situation, if the environment suggested that I thought I could win, we were going to do it. If I didn't, I got in the win. catch me another day. But we're beyond that now because the culture, as we've all agreed on, has morphed into the culture. So it's kill or be killed. So, respectfully, I will not harm a fly, but I will do what I need to do to survive because I understand that our ancestors didn't have that satisfaction. So I just keep it real. Now, as far as my personal plans, I don't know what's going to happen. We're in for a very unpredictable future. Me, I'm looking at it globally. If I look at my human instinct, which is closely tied to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that feeling for safety, that there are other places on the globe that are safer than the current country that we live in today. And I'm making assessments of where that is. Not because I'm trying to escape. It's because at this point, I've worked a long time to try to do good in this life. And I want to be able to live comfortably. Like my brother and I have often said, we've even had the discussion off camera, going back to the hood. Yeah, that's the right thing to do. Yeah, that is. But sometimes that's not the most practical thing to do. Because if that means that I may have to take a life because that pathology has not left that environment, then I'm already going to have to potentially, put myself in harm's way. It's no difference than now the microcosm we see in the world. We've got a group of people, right, wrong, or indifferent, that feel that the great replacement theory means that they need to hunker down and potentially go to war. If we don't agree with that or discount that, we do that at our own peril. So to make a long story short, we have to be that change. We have to make sure that we can defend our families and loved ones responsibly. And then we just have to wait to play this thing out. And we have to make sure that we not react, but proactively look at the things that are currently unfolding. These results of that is going to pretty much be a litmus test on the finance, the economy, and the social climate of America. If enough people are willing to think that the democracy is not operating functionally today, I can tell you through a historical lens, the people that are the oppressed minority are going to suffer. And we need to have contingency plans individually, as families, and as a people. I want to thank all of the guests that came on for a really interesting and insightful dialogue, because I've always shared with people, join the show. If you join it, I bet you know a little bit before, and I think we've met that mission. Thank you, fellas.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.